Okay, I'm going to begin by doing the reading I picked the reading for December 26th. I figured if we're going to have 90-degree temperatures, I might as well pick something cold. We'll see what happens. I like this reading. Growth. Just as when we were children and grew out of favorite toys and clothes, we sometimes grow out of things as adults. People, jobs, homes. This can be confusing. And may wonder why someone or something that was so special and important to us last year doesn't fit the same way in our life this year. May wonder why our feelings have changed. When we were children, we may have tried to fit into an outgrown article of clothing and other areas. What worked last year, what was so important and special to us in times past, maybe doesn't work anymore because we've changed, we've grown. We can accept this as a valid and important part of recovery. Can let ourselves go through experimentation and grief as we struggle to make something fit, trying to figure out if needed no longer fits and why. Can explore our feelings and thoughts around what has happened. Then we can put last year's toys away and make room for the new. I wanted to share that because I want to talk a lot tonight about one of my favorite topics, and that is what is normal? Yes, Virginia, there is a normal. Wherever we are on the journey in our life today is our normal for today. But normals are always in process of changing. Nothing ever stays the same. And that's why it's important to understand the process. That basically when we look at family histories and look at our setup, remember, I had mentioned this last week. When we come into this world, we join 5 families, whether we like it or not. And in the first 10 years of our life, those families actually develop certain normals for us. But the interesting thing is, what we experienced in the first 10 years of our life may not be normal anymore because things in life change. And so I think it's really important for us to take a look at family histories and realize your history is something that's beautiful and special, but it's in process of changing. As we grow, our stories grow, our experiences grow, things begin to happen, and things change. So what I recommend that you do, and we're going to go through family histories in a few minutes, I recommend that all of you take time, get yourself a little notebook, look at your own family histories, and see where you picked up traits and characteristics and certain things, and how things might be different today. You know, when I look at this and I look back at my own life, the first 10 years of my life were from 1940 to 1950. I'm sure that the first 10 years of other people's lives were a little bit later. But I find it interesting. I was born in 1940. I don't even qualify as a baby boomer. I'm actually a war baby. Because when I was born, the whole country was in the middle of the Second World War. Things were crazy. Things were disruptive. There were rationing going on. There's a lot of things I didn't even know about as a kid. And the only instrument we had as a child to communicate with the rest of the world was a radio. Things have changed drastically since then. And so we look at life and realize the fact that either we're born into our family of origin or a blood family. You heard me tell this story before, and I want to tell it again, because to me, it brings out the concept of a child and why children, as they enter into family systems, develop traits and characteristics. Remember the story I told you about the birth of a little child? how that little child didn't really want to be born, and yet it had to be born because the doctor said push, and inside the little child said, "Are you crazy? I'm not going out there." And so the first battle of life takes place, the struggle. Then when the poor kid gets out there, he gets slapped by the doctor, thinking him breathing. He's just experienced the first journey, the journey of change from one perspective to another. Growing up in my family system between the 40s and 50s, my family had some rules, some regulations, some guidelines for me as a child. First of all, I was always taught, don't speak unless you're talked to. Keep your mouth shut. Never talk about the family. And do whatever you're told. And basically, as a little boy, I never really had a voice. I just went along with the giants told me to do. I did. In my family also, there was a lot of craziness, a lot of insanity, a lot of confusion. And again, we're looking at the concept of family traits and characteristics. My mother was the addict in my family, a prescription drug addict. I picked up a lot of my compulsive behavior patterns from my mother. My father was Mr. Wonderful. He was the greatest codependent on the face of the earth. He did everything for everybody, never did a thing for himself. So I followed his pattern. It's just amazing when you look at your history and go back and take a look at it. You learn so much about yourself as a person and why we do some of the things that we do, why we go where we go. Even when it comes to the concept of culture, background. I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. And if you know much about Camden, back in the 40s and the 50s, there were six different neighborhoods in Camden. And everything was defined by streets. You stayed with your own. We even had 5 different Catholic churches in Camden. We had the Irish Catholic Church, the Italian Catholic Church, the Polish Catholic Church, the German Catholic Church. We had the African American Catholic Church on Cannon Avenue. We had the Spanish Catholic Church. We had all these churches. But as a kid, we had rules. The rules were you only go to the Italian Catholic Church. When I was a kid, I was scared to death to go into one of the other churches. I thought something might happen to me. It's almost like we don't realize how we're pick up traits of culture, the things in that direction. The other one was, don't you ever date anybody unless they're Italian. My cousin, God rest his soul, was the first person in our family to have the audacity to actually date an Irish girl. And then he married her. His mother cut him off from the family. I can still see it when I was a kid. My aunt saying, my son's dead. He doesn't exist anymore. He's not my son. Took over 2 years for her to finally, it took the grandkids to finally get her to come around. Things were so rigid and so uptight. They were the normals of that day and age. And the concept is, over the period of time, normals change. And the crazy part about it is, it's almost like that rigidity in that concept, the cultural backgrounds, people were almost pigeonholed as to who they are, what they should be. You know, I even smile about this today. People ask me why I'm a Yankee fan. Well, growing up in the 40s in the Italian neighborhood, everybody on the Yankees was Italian. And so the Italians rooted for the Yankees. It all kind of fits, doesn't it? And it's almost like You also were delegated and told what you were going to be and how you were going to be it. Most of you know I went to seminary when I was 14 years old, not because I wanted to go in the seminary, but because I was delegated. Again, because people bring their traditions from the old country. It's a lot about prestige. It's a lot about belonging. All these things are part of it, the connections. And so no matter what your culture is, you have a history, a concept of it. And whatever generation you were born in, you pick up traits and characteristics from that generation. Same when it comes to religion. I grew up in an Italian Catholic school. I learned my concept of God was a God of fear, a God of guilt, a God to be scared to death of, a God that I trembled around. God was used as a control mechanism. And as a result, it was the guilt all the time. Even in our Italian Catholic school, every first Friday of the month, they marched you into church to go to confession. Even if you didn't want to go, you went anyway. I still remember when I was a priest hearing those little kids' confessions. I had a little kid come into me one time and say, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." Now this is a second grader. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I committed adultery 8 times." I said, "Yeah, you're pretty good. It's amazing." He probably heard that word in the classroom. He didn't know what it was. And I said, "I'll tell you what, why don't you go home and help mom do the dishes tonight and give your mother a hug?" Okay? That was the penance I gave. But it's insane with some of the stuff and how people literally, they were normals. I joke about this today, but it's not really a joke. I can remember, growing up in that atmosphere where I was scared to death in school all the time, scared not to perform. Normals change. The nuns would hit us. I got beat with that stick plenty of times. But the bottom line was, today, she'd be arrested for child abuse. Back in the 40s and 50s, it was normal. I'm sharing all this because I want you to look at the concept that normals change. My relationship with God has changed. I believe in the God of love today, the God of simplicity. I believe in the Spirit. I believe in spirituality. I believe in different things today. Everything goes through process. It goes through change based on experience, based on your background. I'm learning over and over again the value of balance. Even my eating disorder, my addictions, I picked all these traits up, all these characteristics up. I'm in recovery now from my eating disorder. And as a kid growing up, food was the center of everything in our family. My mother would say things to me like, if I got upset or I was angry about something, she'd say, "Go eat, you'll feel better." Well, she was right. It was used as a comforter. It was used as a drug, ways in which things were. But again, a lot of these things go back. They go back in history. They go back to your foundations, to your basics. And that's why it's really important to realize the fact that change is part of the journey and part of life. It's the same thing when we look at the concept of socialization. We live in different worlds. The world I grew up in, the TV set, which came out in 1948, was about 3 foot wide, had a 7-inch screen. We had one channel, came on 3 hours a day. Today, what do we have? 2,467 channels. We have a TV on your watch. Well, pretty soon they'll probably implant one in you so you can watch it all day long. Who knows? Everything's in constant process of change. And today, especially, the change comes faster and faster and faster. And many of us can even keep up with it. And so, yeah, we have to be open to the change. We got to go with it. Whoever believed in the wildest imagination would be doing what we're doing tonight on Zoom. I never thought I'd be a Zoomer. It's totally amazing. And yet, as you go through life, you have to almost do a lot of adjusting. That's why I really picked that word as a spiritual word. Adjusting is part of the journey, it's part of life. We're constantly in process of adjusting, going through changes, building things in new directions. And we have to be open to new things, open to new ways. And yet it's not easy. Many people in very many ways want to go back to where it was before. You can't go back. I get that all the time living here in a 55 and over community. People say, why can't we go back to the good old days? Why can't we go back to the way it was? I don't want to go back. I want to move forward. But see, deep inside, there's still a piece of that old stuff that stays with you. There's still little triggers and stuff that come up that are connected to it. Guilt and shame were normal back then. Now we have the concept of media, socialization. Everything that happens is out there in 2 seconds flat. It was interesting. My wife and I watched a movie on Netflix. I can't remember the title of it, but it was about this couple that worked for a university, and they created a time machine. And then basically when it was ready, they climbed into the machine and they set it. This couple was back in 1966. They set the time of the machine for 2025. And so literally when they went through the change, they went from 1966 to 1925 to 2025. And all of a sudden, everything was changed. Back in 1966, men ran the university. In 2025, women were running the university. Women were in charge. The man had a hard time adjusting to that. He was used to always being top dog. He couldn't understand how a woman could be elevated to the position of the head of a university, how a woman could have this and have that. And he went through all kinds of trauma, all kinds of change in his life, even to the point he couldn't handle the change. His wife could. His wife stayed, became a very prominent person. He couldn't handle it. He got back in the time machine and went back to 1966 where he felt comfortable. But see, we don't have time machines. And yet, there are many people who are still living in the past because they're scared to death to move forward. And that's why a lot of times we see the concept of fear that grows inside of us, that we get scared, we get afraid. But your family history, where you come from, your roots, your foundations, they are some of the most important parts of your journey, the most important parts of your life. When I wrote my book, I entitled it, Learning to Value Your Childhood. Your history is your teacher. I wouldn't change anything in my life because I know the journey took me to where I am today. And I realize over and over again the value of the past. And yet, a lot of it I don't want to go back to. But what lessons did I learn from it? How did I grow from it? How can you look at your own family history and be able to look and learn, even from the mistakes and things that were made, to go back and look at it and realize, learn about yourself, and be able to realize the value of moving forward? Yes, Virginia, there is a normal. I have the power, you have the power to create new normals in your life today. And whatever works for you, whatever helps you to be a better person, what helps you to grow, what helps you to experience things. And that's why sometimes you have to look at the past, learn lessons from it. See, I truly believe in something. I truly believe that nothing in life happens by accident. Everything's a journey. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of ingenuity, to be able to face your past and be able to learn from it and grow from it. I don't know about you, I spent a lot of time being angry at my past. And now I realize it was a waste of time. I have to embrace my past. I have to learn from it. You know, the two roots of codependency are control and fear. I have to realize the fact that I, many times in life, do not have control, but I can be open to learn and open to grow. I can be open to heal, to forgive, and to find good in most of the things. You know, I was pretty angry at my mother for a long period of time by putting me in the seminary. And yet I look back on it now and I'm grateful, because if she didn't put me in, I probably would still be mama's little boy. It forced me to grow up, to move forward. So really, it was an act of love. You have to look at everything through different sets of eyes, how change takes place. Take a look at Camden County College. Believe it or not, before that was Camden County College, it used to be Mother of the Savior Seminary. I went there for 6 years. It's amazing, isn't it? And now all of a sudden, people went into the seminary when they were 14 years old. Now you can't go in, even apply for the priesthood till after college. You have to be vetted. You have to go through all the different types of fingerprinting and all this kind of stuff to make sure, after all the stuff that occurred and things that have happened. And so change has taken place there too. The diocese sold that ground to the college. So the college was born as a result of it. From the ashes of everything of the past, something new is born, the Phoenix Principle. Sometimes in life, we have to let go of things to let new things flourish and move in new directions. And that means we have to work hard on developing an open mind. We have to never be done. Always in constant process of growing, of learning, of discovering, of experiencing. Yeah, I even look at 12-step programs. I've been in 12-step programs since 1969. And I see the changes, the stuff that has taken place, and how things moved. Think about Dr. Bob and Bill W., the founders of AA. I'm sure that when they came together and tried to stay sober, this whole thing started. I'm sure they were thinking, well, maybe we can start a movement that will take in a lot of different areas over time. Nah. They were just trying to the best of their ability not to pick up a drink for one day. Then they got a third drunk. Then it moved until they had a convention and they developed the big book, the 12 steps, the 12 traditions. But those things were done primarily for alcoholics in the beginning. And now, look, all the things that have sprung from that beautiful little beginning. Everything in life starts sometimes with a seed, small, and moves and grows. But you have to be open to allow it to happen. So you can't live in the past, but you can learn from the past and realize the fact that change does take place. Even Al-Anon, a beautiful program, one of my favorite programs on the face of the earth. The first program I ever went to. That program started in the kitchen of Bill W.'s house. Bill W.'s wife, Lois, decided to get the wives of all the recovering alcoholics together in her kitchen. She made a pot of coffee, and Al-Anon was born. I look at starting point. A mustard seed was given to me by my sponsor. It told me it's going to grow. Then brought me into a room and he said, "You're going to run this place called Starting Point." It was a simple little house. Look where it's grown to today. It's always a process. The 12-step programs have moved to 21 different 12-step programs. We even have a new one coming to Starting Point very shortly called Depressed Anonymous. They have their own big book, everything. It's amazing how things are flourishing and developing because the principles, the concepts are fundamental, they're basic. And yet over time, they take on new meanings, they move in new directions. So we learn from the past, we grow from the past. And that's why it's important. I look at life today and we look at the world we live in today, and I know there's a lot of craziness that goes on in the world. But the world has been crazy from the beginning of time. And things come and things go. But the secret is to be open to learn lessons, to grow from the lessons. We don't always do that. Sometimes we make a lot of mistakes. Sometimes we put ourselves through a lot of hurt. And maybe it's important sometimes even to do that. Because sometimes from the hurt and from the pain comes growth. Sometimes from the mistakes, something good comes from it. That's the most important piece to realize. We have to look for good even in the struggles and the negative stuff of life. Even sickness. Sickness in people sometimes brings out their strength, brings out their endurance. I know a person that went from walking with a walker to being able to take 3 and 4 mile walks a day without the walker. I see a gentleman down the street from me who's 104 years old. And guess what? He still goes to the clubhouse and plays cards and takes part in activities. I give him a lot of credit. You know why? You know what he said to me? "I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. There's something more to learn, something more to grow." That's why I love that concept, that you're always in process, you're always learning, you're always growing, you're always experiencing. You have to grab onto it and just go with it. Will you make mistakes? Will you screw up every once in a while? God, I hope so. I really hope so. That's why we have to experience the fact that sometimes even falling down teaches us to get up. Sometimes we don't do it perfectly. I don't want to be around anybody who works the program perfectly. It means they're not real. They're a robot or something. I don't know. But the bottom line is we have the ups and we have the downs. Even that simple little thing, think about it for a minute. Your heart, which is your key and your center, hook your heart up to a monitor and you notice it goes like this. It's called life. If it goes like this, you got a problem. That's what's so beautiful about it. And so, yes, there has to be good times. There has to be negative times. There has to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There has to be new experiences. There has to be the concept. Where are things going to go in the future? I don't know. All I know is I have to work with where I am today and try to be open to learn something new, discover a new thing, a new direction. I mean, every day, as he comes in, tries to teach me something new about technology. Do I get it all the time? Nah. Sometimes she has to go through my hard head quite a few times before I get it. That's okay. That's all part of it. But I know I can keep learning. I can keep growing. I'm able to do things today I couldn't do in the past. And yet I realize it's all part of the journey and part of life. Now I understand when they say, as you get older, you get younger. Because The most important thing in the world is just to keep that open mind, to keep learning, to keep discovering, and constantly be in that process. That's why I don't want to ever be done. I want to always be in process of recovery, learning something new. Because even in recovery, every time you go to a meeting and you're around people in recovery, you hear it, not a little bit here, a little bit there. You hear different concepts, different things. And some of the things people put out is so beautiful and so special. But it's the thoughts of different people. I told you this so many times. The greatest library on the face of the earth is the human library. Because your story, your history, is the greatest story on the face of the earth. Your mistakes are all part of it. And every time I hear somebody tell their story or stay connected, I learn something else about me. I discover something about me. That's what life is supposed to be. It's the adventure of growth, the adventure of life. So yes, normals are something that are in process, and normals are always in process of changing. I said back in the beginning, yes, Virginia, there is a normal. My normal is being here with you right now. And even that's changing. It's all part of the process of life. So you keep moving forward. And so there's always new normals, new concepts, new ways, new directions. I guess what I'm trying to say tonight is develop an excitement for living, an excitement for learning, an excitement for growing. And just try to the best of our ability, all of us, just to be open to new normals, to new directions, to new things, and realize we may never find all the answers. But maybe someday we'll discover the questions. I don't know. It's all part of it. And so I wanted to share with you these different concepts of life. And I realize now, when I look back, I look at my mom and my dad, and I realize, wow, my mom and my dad were some of the greatest teachers I ever had in my life. There's so many things I learned from them. It took me till I was in my 40s to finally connect with that, to go back and look at it. Because before that, I was too busy either blaming or being angry at somebody. But, change comes when it's time for it to come. We never know when it's going to come. So we got to be open to it. So take some time. Take some time to look at the first 10 years of your life. Take some time to do an inventory of all those different areas. I put together 7 questions I tell people to work on. If you go to Vince's Corner, the Starting Point website under Vince's Corner, down at the bottom where it says alternate resources, you'll see the 7 questions. And they're based on your family history. I recommend downloading a copy of those questions, taking some time to answer them and go over them. You'll be surprised how much you'll learn just from them. Simple little questions. They're a big part of it. So I hope this helps you understand the concept of normal family systems and changes, and realize we're all people in the process of changing every day. And that's beautiful. That's what it's about. Now, next week when you come in, I want to cover something which I enjoy doing. The title is How to Play and How to Have Fun. You see, codependents have a problem. We take life very, very, very seriously. We analyze everything. So we got to learn to relax. So I want to recommend that if you have a stuffed animal or something from your childhood, no matter what it is, bring it with you next week. We'll do some exercises. I also recommend getting a photograph of yourself as a little child to become your special little child photograph. I think things like this are really important to begin to learn, to begin to grow. And so we'll work on that next week. Then the week after that, we'll do codependency in relationships. So tonight in prayer, I just want to ask the higher power to be a guide and a strength to all of us as we continue to work on new normals and new directions in life. So let us pray. God, we come before you in prayer. We ask the God of our understanding, our divine presence, to help us, to guide us, and to help us to begin to realize that we're on a journey, a beautiful journey called the journey of life. Teach us and help us to be open to new things and new directions. Teach us to realize the value of learning, the value of growth. Teach us to look back at our history and be grateful for it. Teach us to learn, to grow from it. Most important thing in the of the journey, Lord. And I know with your help, with your guidance, and with your direction, you can lead us and guide us. We ask the divine presence, divine energy, the spirit. We ask our higher power to guide us and be with us as we walk the journey of life. Help us to be open to the old, open to the new, but above all, be open to the present. We pray and we ask for this guidance and for this direction, and we pray it in God's name. Amen.